YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my review for Avataro Sentai DonBrothers Episode 2. So this episode's main storyline, or story of the week, revolves around this older lady who basically just wants eternal youth, or just youth, kind of like classic story. And it kind of centers around them having a conversation with Don Momotaro at the FedEx office, or the Polar FedEx office, or whatever it is, and about tact, about how he doesn't have any tact with like lying about like, oh, you look like you're 40 years old, you look so young, and she's like, how old do I look to you? And he's like, well, 68, you're aged. Tact is just not saying true stuff, I'll pass. It's almost Momotaro driving the plot, where he's the only one that's not like feeding her false compliments, so she keeps feeling insecure about being older, and then a monster spirit latches itself onto her, and it makes her younger, but every time, even though she looks younger and younger and younger, every time she asks Momotaro how old she looks, he still says 68. And I think it's because he can see through her because of his powers, I guess. Basically, he keeps driving her further and further up the wall. And then she ends up going totally nuts and turning into the monster and absorbing people. Honestly, I thought before that happened, she was gonna keep getting younger and younger and younger and become like a baby. It's a baby! It's Scott! And with all that going on, we also do stuff with the main characters as well. Like I mentioned, Momotaro's kind of at that focus, and then he shows up at the end battle, obviously, you know, big sort of entrance and whatnot, and we do get our debut of the Don Momotaro Alter, which did not go the way I thought. I probably should have paid more attention to the scans, but I thought the Alters were gonna kind of be this like pseudo mecha battle replacement, not replacement, but like a pseudo different mecha battle that was kind of in a virtual stage. And it is to a degree because it's in this AR world thing that's overlaying, and he like ping pongs around it. But he turns into like a tiny little Battler's Experience guy. LBX, what was that? Was that show called LBX? I don't remember, but that's what it reminds me of. He turns like a little guy, and is that the way it's going to be the whole time? I probably should have looked into it more after this, but that's what happens. And when he transforms into it, it's not like a robot armor or anything, in case anyone thought that, because like when you look at pictures, it kind of looks like he just goes into a robot mech. Transfers his consciousness into it, so he's just like a dead, unconscious body. Not dead, because that would not be good. Unconscious body, like while he transfers into that. But we get our first look at the altar, and it was interesting to say the least. In regards to other stuff going on, though, you know, I feel like we're still following Oni's sister as our point of view character, which is kind of neat. And after that whole manga scandal, she's now working at a restaurant, and the restaurant happens to be this universe versions of the hangout from the Zenkaiser Hangout, which is a cafe here, and Zenkaiser Black, or Kaito, is the proprietor there. And we get a little bit of a taste of his character demorphed and his kind of cooler personality. And I really like seeing the two different sides of that actor, both the kind of always-on classic Toku lead we saw in Zenkaiser, and then him almost being a more cooler Red Ranger, Six Ranger type of character here. It's neat. You know, this is probably not the case, but technically we haven't seen him morph into Zenkaiser Black yet, so what if he isn't Zenkaiser Black? I mean, he probably is, but I just thought that was kind of interesting, because we see Zenkaiser Black at the end of the episode, we never see him morph. It kind of sets up some of the status quo there. We do meet SaruBrother, who tries to pay the bill with a poem. I think that was a joke in Community at one point, but we don't really get a full intro to him, we just kind of meet him. Same thing with Black Ranger. Like, we do get a like morphed intro for him, but a character intro we get a little teaser, and that he briefly runs into Momotaro. They don't connect, even Momotaro says, oh, I didn't get to make a connection with him, but he's on the run from the law. I believe he's brothers with the guy that's been contacting Oni's sister. For some reason, I couldn't remember whether it was the brother of Red or Black, but I think he's brothers with the Black Ranger, but he's on the run from the law. And I find it hilarious that, like, the badass character on the run from the law is the one that's the Sonic the Hedgehog character. Also get a little bit more on Kiji Brother, because Momotaro also runs into Kiji Brother, and he's delivering a package to him, and he, like, fixes his shoulder or whatever, and then that segues into sort of like a little mini origin story character focus, where we see, like, oh, this is how he became Kiji Brother, this is a little bit about his character, and I really liked that. He's honestly probably my favorite so far. He's just so likable and, like, kind of relatable, because he just talks about how he's just totally just an average, like, middle-of-the-road type of person, but he has a wife, and so he's, you know, lucky in some areas. And there's a scene where him and his wife almost get hit by a car, but he saves them as Kiji Brother, and I thought, oh, she knows about it, but then somehow the way he did it, she didn't notice. Maybe it's because she can't see the AR world, but that was probably my favorite scene in the episode, was the little sort of character cap on him. Just because I really liked his character, and I really liked, like, the way they handled that. I like the way they're handling the character intros in general, which is something I'll get into in just a second. At the end of the episode, Oni's sister mistakes another one of the human villains for Momotaro, which is funny, because she gets another message saying, Momotaro's going to be at this location, you need to meet him, And of course, she's being oblivious and she misses him driving by, and she sees another one of the villains who's carrying like looks like a umbrella. You lift it up from a cafe, but it's a weapon. I'm like, oh, you look like a cosplayer. You must be Don Momotaro. He mistakes him again, and another one morphs and knocks her out of the way. It's kind of funny. I wonder if that'll happen a third time. We get the intro for that. Like I said, KijiBrother shows up, and then we get our Ranger intro for Black. And this is our second look at Ranger CG. And, you know, it is what it is. I feel like seeing certain shots, it looks like it simultaneously fits, but also doesn't. And we get our first look at the Avatar. No, we don't. We did our Avatar change last week, but a more thorough look at the Avatar change where it makes a little more sense. Because InuiBrother transforms into Ryusoul Black using... It starts out as a classic Zenkaiger gear and transforms into a new one. I'm going to also put a pin in that. We're putting a pin in a lot of things for the end of the review. But he transforms, and this time it actually is justified because obviously it gives him a more normal form, and he uses the Ryusoldier weapon. KijiBrother transforms as well, and it's not a gender-bent suit, really. It keeps the skirt, like he even comments on it. So at least this time they were actually taking advantage of the unique powers, unlike last week where he transformed into Zenkaiser just to use his own weapon, so that at least made me kind of happy. I think that we set up the way it works, it seems, is that, you know, each monster of the week is going to be based off of a past Sentai. Last week's was Ryusoldiers, now they have access to Ryusoldier. This week was Tokyuger, train-based. So after they defeat him in the mecha, because we do get a traditional mecha fight, we get the Tokyuger one that Zenkaiser Black takes, so next week we're probably going to be using Tokyuger. So I think that's the way it's going to work. It's not like Gokaiger where they had everything from the get-go. I mean, they did get the legendary powers in the tribute episodes, but you know what I mean? Like, they could transform to anyone from episode 1. Is that they're going to gain access as we go along. The episode basically ends after the final battle with just kind of a little shot of everybody. Kind of teases that we're going to be introing SaruBrother more next week, and Oni's sister trying to figure out who Don Momotaro is, and she thinks she might know. Like, overall, I actually did like this episode, and I'm still quite enjoying the series so far. A lot of people brought up the pacing last week, and I will say the pacing is a little bit jumbled, especially in this episode, and it is fast in some areas, and unfortunately because of the toy aspects, a lot of Toku is rushed very early on, and I really wish we could change that, but obviously it's kind of part of it and it's the way it works. But that being said, I think this is actually one of the better ways of handling it, because a lot of the action stuff is rushed to get the toys out there in front of your face, but I actually like that there's kind of a slow build of the team. I think it's rather interesting that the characters are fighting together. They're not fully formed yet, but they're fighting together and they don't know who each other is. I mean, I haven't seen all the Sentai, but I can't think of a Sentai where that's really happened before. Did it happen in Kyoryuger? I don't remember. I know that they weren't a team at the beginning, but regardless, it feels unique, and I really dig that. And I don't know if I mentioned this in last week's review, but that was something I did appreciate about Zenkaiger's first arc, was that they took their time building the team, which is a surprise, because both of these series seem like it's just going to be a silly doesn't matter series, and they actually both take their time building the team, and I really like that. I like the kind of, it's a little bit disjointed, but I like the slow build towards it. A nice compromise of having to rush out a lot of the product, but we're kind of getting to build the story and mythology. Speaking of the mythology, like, you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of us doing Gokai changes again, but I'll admit I'm legitimately intrigued on how they're going to integrate this into the plot, and I do think it's funny, like people have pointed out, that the monsters being based off of this and having the changes feels a lot more like an anniversary story than Zenkaiger had. Kind of hoping that the legacy of Sentai and the Sentai themselves play a role in the story, just so that it doesn't seem just superficial and we get a explainer as to why that's happening. I'm sure we are, but I hope it's giving a meaningful explainer. But as of right now, like, I'm honestly intrigued about how it works. It was like a little, I don't want to say confusing because we haven't gotten answers yet, but it was definitely something I noticed that, you know, last week when they destroyed the monster, Zenkaiser Black took a classic gear, and then InuiBrother took a classic gear, but before he put it in, it transformed into a new one. And then I think after that, KijiBrother just instantly pulled out a new one. But then this week, when the Tokyuger monster was destroyed, Zenkaiser Black pocketed an Avatar version. So I'm kind of curious about how that works, about why and how they transform. So I'm legitimately curious on that. The other final note I had was, we do have like a physical suit or physical suit pieces for the Black Ranger, like kind of like KijiBrother has the whole upper half that they can work with for certain shots. But for this one, we show shots of his hand like putting the gears in, and it looks so funny because it looks like a cutaway gag you would see in a comedy sketch, or like sometimes I think they did stuff like that on SpongeBob where they would do a close-up and it would be like a live-action hand shot or something. I don't know, it looks strange. And then there's like a shot of only like this part of his helmet when he's holding the gun up for the transformation. So they clearly made a helmet, and it's just way more awkward than KijiBrother. Overall, I did like this episode. I'm still enjoying it. I'm going to give it a 3. It's like a strong 3 because I really did enjoy myself, but I just felt the structure of this episode was a little bit jumbled. But that's about it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell. Get the notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.